Hi, welcome to 90% Knitting. This is episode 243, and I'm Lisa, your host, also known as Fiber Nymph on Ravelry and Instagram. Today is Thursday, May 25th, and it's been over a week since I've recorded. That was due to my trip that I took, and I'm going to tell you a bit about my trip later on in the podcast. I won't take time up to do that now, but it was a good trip. We had a wonderful time. My daughter graduated. It was awesome. Um, yeah, so it's a day. I've spent 2 days now where I've had about an hour and a half spent sitting in the garage that we take our cars to, because both my car and my husband's car was due for inspection in May, and somehow we managed to let it go until close to the end of the month, which we never do. And in order for his car to get done as well, I had to take it up. So yesterday was my car. Today was his car. And basically those 2 times at the garage, sitting there waiting for the cars, that was the only knitting time I've had since the last time I talked to you, almost. I've had a little bit otherwise, but not very much. So I don't have a ton of knitting content. I do have things to talk about with regard to the year in the life of a knitter, Knitalong. As I'm going to start telling you about June, because the June segment of that will be coming up soon. I have 3 questions from the Do You Have Questions thread, so that'll be fun. That was one of the reasons I decided I was going to record today, because I didn't want to leave those hanging, so I'm going to answer those. A little bit of new stuff to show you. 10%, I'll talk to you about my trip a little bit, as well as what I've been listening to book-wise. And then I have shop news. So that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about today. There will be a small shop update on Monday. Not tomorrow. Usually I do Fridays, but this time it's going to be on Monday, which is Memorial Day here in the United States. But again, more on that later on. I am going to continue to use timestamps in the show notes because I've gotten some really good feedback about that. You guys seem to like that, and so I will continue to do that. So you can just hop through and watch the parts you want to see, skip the parts you aren't interested in. I apologize. Last episode, timestamps were all I got up in the show notes. I did not get the actual informational stuff up there, but in my defense, I was trying to get ready to leave for our trip, so it was kind of a crazy week because I had deadlines to do prior to that. I'll try to do better this week. So, all right, a little coffee. Alrighty. What should we talk about first? Let's talk about what knitting I have. I worked on this sock, which was my Never Not Color sock, my anniversary colorway. I'm not finishing it. Like, I have, I think, 3 rounds and then the Kitchener to go. But Stash Dash starts tomorrow. So I'm leaving. I'm going to finish it tomorrow. But I was on the, well, I'm trying to remember where I was the last time I showed it to you. I may have been through the gusset decreases, like just through them. At any rate, I knit mostly on the foot today while I was up at the garage. And then did most of the toe. Like I said, just a few more rounds to go with the toe, and then I'll be done. This is just my standard stockinette sock with a slip stitch heel flap. I'm not doing afterthought heels for the time being. I'm tired of afterthought heels, and I don't really care. Usually I would do those on a self-striping sock, but honestly, I don't think it looks that bad. I know the stripe sequence gets disrupted, but I don't care. Anyway, it feels so good to say that sometimes. I don't care. Just don't care. So yeah, this is what I knit on today, and so I will finish this. Now, see, with regard to Stash Dash and socks, if you're knitting a pair of socks, and as long as you knit on the second sock during Stash Dash and finish it, you get to count the yardage for the whole pair, like both socks. So technically, I could have finished this today, and as long as I knit on the second sock and finished it during Stash Dash, I could still count this one. It would be part of the total meters for this project. However, if you only knit one sock, you can still count that as long as you knit it, work on it and finish it during Stash Dash. So my thought was, if I decide that I'm disinclined to knit the second sock during Stash Dash, like if I just get tired and don't want to do it, at least if I finish this during Stash Dash, I can at least count the meters for this sock, even if I don't get the second one done. That's the way my brain's working right now. So we'll take it. Anyway. So yeah, I worked on that, and then when I was done, when I got to that point on that one, I picked this sock back up, and this is my, it's all tangled up. This was the colorway that I'm dyeing up as an exclusive colorway for the Downseller Studio Splash Pad Party. I'm keeping the pre-orders for that up in my shop through the 31st. So you still have almost a week, 6 days. If you'd like a skein of this, you can go ahead and pre-order it. And I can't remember what date I said they would ship out by. I already shipped the first lot of those. Actually today, they went out today. So if you had ordered one up through the 16th, it shipped today. But if you ordered a skein of it since the 16th, unless I had an extra from stuff that I dyed, it will ship out, I believe I said June 9th. So pretty early on into the Splash Pad Party, you'll have it to use. But anyway, this was my sock that I started just so that I could show the colorway. It's called the Bold Berry Swirl Splash Pad Parfait. So you've got the two wee stripes that are purple, a deep purple and a blue, and then you've got this nice variegated and speckled stripe in the middle, which is the swirl. I really am enjoying this. Yeah, I am. It's a fun sock. But anyway, I just started the heel flap on this one. I'm going to just do a regular heel flap and guess it on this one as well. So that was all the further I got by the time the car was done and I could leave today. So anyway, here it is in the ball. And again, just my standard stockinette sock, US ones. Makes me happy. Don't have to really think too much. Okay, so those I worked on yesterday and, well, today, basically today. The thing I worked on yesterday was actually a hat. This is a second hat. You saw the other hat that I did a few weeks ago, and basically I started this one a week ago Tuesday because I had a dental appointment and I didn't know. I sometimes have to wait, and I thought, well, I'll cast on, just another leftover yarn hat. So this is my cozy base in the dark brown color, and this was a one-of-a-kind variegated green that I dyed up one time, and I don't even remember what I dyed it up for. I mean, I dyed it up for something that I was making, I think. Yeah, I don't remember. But anyway, I had the leftovers in my stash. So I'm basically doing the exact same thing I did on the last hat you saw, where I did, probably a good 6 inches of 2x2 ribbing. And then I'm starting to do the striping, like 6 rounds of the green and then 2 rounds of the brown, so that I end up with these 3 narrow stripes of brown, and then the rest of it's just the green. I'm on the crown decreases, and I very easily could have finished this morning. But again, Stash Dash begins tomorrow. So I will finish that tomorrow and have my first finished Stash Dash project. I'm doing it, even though this is cozy and the other one I did was on Bonafide, which is my DK weight, and cozy's my worsted weight. I'm doing it on the same needles, US 5s, 84 stitches. That seems to work well. There's not a huge difference between my DK and my worsted weight, and so it seems to be working just fine. So that's that. And that's it. That is all the knitting that I have done in the however many days it's been since I talked to you last. Let's talk about the Knitalong for a little while here. A year in the life of a knitter. We are still in the spring quarter. We're past the middle of the spring quarter now because May is over halfway done. So April, May, and June, our themes, again, are growth, life, and light. So anything that you are knitting for the general knit-along part, as long as you can somehow justify those themes in what you're knitting, or just the general theme of spring, perfect. That's all you need to do. This is not a big, stringent rules kind of thing for the general knit-along. Our May focus was using fingering weight yarn. So again, you know, that's not necessary, but if you are, great. Our May challenge was May flowers. So that one does have some actual more stringent guidelines that you need to be following. I'm not going to rehash them here, but they are all written out in the May challenge thread in the 90% knitting group on Ravelry. So you've still got a week, and honestly, those don't have to be big projects. So you've got plenty of time to join in for that. If you would like. Hi. Okay, I paused there for a minute because I realized I had not gone in to figure out how many posts we've had this month to tell you how many prizes there are going to be at this point. And I was going to say, oh, I'll let you know that next week. But by the time I record next week, May will be over. So I wanted to at least give you a heads up as to where we're at right now. So far this month, there have been 113 posts in the chatter thread that were not mine. And I think I've only posted like 4 posts this month. It's been a crazy month, and with the traveling and everything, I didn't get a chance to. So I have some catching up to do in there. So anyway, that means there's going to be at least 2 prizes awarded the next time I record, because by the time I record next week, it should be June, probably June 1st if I do it in a week. So I will be able to do that. Again, I'm awarding 1 prize for every 50 posts in the chatter thread. So you can look forward to that next time. And you know what? It seems like the last week of every month is the week that everybody starts posting a lot. So there's always more prizes than what I think, which is fine. Okay, so that is that, and then the May challenge thread. Let me look at that. I haven't looked at that lately either. I'm sorry. I see this being away, and I did not have internet the last couple of days either. The May flowers, we have 26 posts, so that would be 25 entries probably. So, ooh, pretty. Anyway, so yes, get your entries in. I would love to see what you're working on. And there will be 1 prize for the May challenge thread. All right, let me talk about June, since like I said, it will be June by the time I record next time. June, we're still in, it's the last month in the spring quarter. Our June focus is going to be lace weight yarn. Now, I know if you're like me, you don't knit with lace weight very often, or read that as ever, because I don't knit with lace weight. I may have to challenge myself next month to do some lace weight yarn knitting. I don't know. But anyway, the yarn focus for next month is lace weight yarn. So again, you don't have to knit with lace weight, but if you want to challenge yourself in your general knitting, go for it. Otherwise, the themes are still the same. Excuse me, the themes are still the same, and the only thing that's different will be the yarn focus, which is lace weight. The June challenge is going to be, I'm calling it Lacy Luxuries. Let me explain this a little bit because that could be confusing. Basically, this challenge is for you to knit using lace patterns, okay? It can be any type of project as long as it's not something that you would wear. Okay, so it needs to be a non-wearable item, non-garment, non-accessory. So we're talking mostly like decorative things. So like those lacy candle jar covers for candles, dishcloths, pillows, ornaments, those pretty lacy ornaments that you can do the outside part knitted and lace, and then you put that ball inside. Basically, what I've done is I went to Ravelry and I did a pattern search, and I did it just for knitting, although obviously you can crochet as well, that had photos, and it was for home. If you do the search under home, the home folder, all home items, fabric characteristics, lace. I came up with 673 patterns. There's jewelry. Actually, jewelry is a wearable though. So I think we're gonna not use, well, I may let jewelry slide because it's not something like you're not wearing it like a scarf or something. I'll put that in the actual guidelines when I write it, if jewelry is going to be allowed. But there are ornaments. There are lots of dishcloths. Again, there's those candle covers, doilies, like little things that you would place on your table. You know what a doily is. Anyway, there's a lot of things that you could use. Mug cozies, anything as long as there is a lace motif in it. There's going to be no yardage requirement on this, and here's why. There's also not going to be a yarn weight requirement. It is not necessary to use lace weight yarn to do this challenge. However, if you do use lace weight yarn for your challenge, you can post twice and get a second entry into the June challenge. But I decided to do this because sometimes if you've never knit lace before, lace can seem sort of intimidating, especially when you start looking at the charts and as you're knitting lace tends to just kind of look like a hot mess until you get it blocked and everything. So I wanted to make this an accessible challenge to you regardless of what level of experience you have with knitting lace. And the other aspect of that is there's a huge difference between knitting lace and lace knitting. Knitting lace is where you're knitting something that has a lace pattern in it, but your reverse side, like your wrong side knitting, is a rest row. So you're usually just purling or just knitting, depending on if it's garter or not. Whereas knitted lace, you're actually doing the lace patterning on both sides. There are no rest rows, and that can get a little intense. I don't have good luck with that. Anyway, yeah, so that's the difference. Whether there's a rest row or not a rest row, that kind of differentiates knitting lace versus lace knitting. I learned that in Ann Hansen lace knitting class one time. Anyway, I just wanted you to have a chance to play with lace if you've not done much of it. If you have knit lace before and you enjoy it, you know, maybe take it up a level, try to find something that's a little more difficult. If you've knit lace before and you didn't enjoy it, maybe give it another try. But anyway, those are the qualifications for this challenge for June. It'll be any non-clothing or accessory lace item. So no socks, no hats, no scarves. I'm still thinking about jewelry. Any weight of yarn. So you could do like that big bulky weight shawl that I have started. You could do that. It's got a lace pattern in it, and that would be perfectly acceptable. And it would go pretty quick probably. But if you do actually use lace weight yarn, as defined in Ravelry, like Ravelry has to actually categorize whatever yarn you use as lace weight. Unless it's hand spun, then it's going to have to be an on your honor kind of thing. Then you can post it twice and get an extra entry. And there is no yardage requirement. So that's it. I think that challenge is pretty wide open for interpretation and flexibility depending on where you are with your lace knitting skills and what you would want to do. But a lot of those projects, again, that I looked up were small. Oh, that was the other thing. 673 is the number of projects that are in Ravelry's library for between 0 and 150 yards. There's obviously lots and lots more that have more yardage. But I was, again, just looking at really smaller, more accessible projects that would be good for just about anyone who is participating, regardless of your experience with lace. So that's June. If you have any questions about what I just talked about, please feel free to post that in the chatter thread, your questions, or PM me, and I will get back to you and clarify. But I will be putting the June challenge thread up within the next week, so it's ready to go as of June 1st. Oh, the other guideline would be that everything for the June challenge has to be started and finished in June. Whips are not allowable there. Whereas whips are perfectly allowable for anything else we're doing in this knit along. Okay, let's go to questions. There were 3 questions asked on the in the Do You Have Questions thread, and I would like to approach them. I would like to answer them all today. Let's see. I have to find them first. Okay. I believe there was 3. Oh, maybe there was 4, actually, because there was one that came in right after I recorded last time. Okay, so Graybill, who is Amanda, She's living in the UK right now. She has a question. I have a goofy question. She says, how is Muffin adapting to having 2 houses? And have you tried her on the motorcycle / scooter yet? I'm totally waiting for a glamour shot from the back of your bike because they really do sell dog gear. I know they sell dog gear. I'm pretty sure that is never going to happen with her. She's just a little too high strung. I don't think that would work very well. I've seen dog carriers for the back of bikes. That would be a possibility, but I'm not seeing that happening anytime soon. As far as how she is adapting to having 2 houses, she's doing fine. It's fun because she spends the majority of her time here at my house, but anytime that I'm taking a day that I'm going to be working up at the mountain house during the week, and so she would be home alone all day because Chris is at work, I bring her with me. And she loves being up at the mountain house. The whole property is fenced in because Bill used to have a lot of dogs. So he has pretty aggressive fencing up. So it's perfect for her. She can go outside and just roam till her heart's content. She sticks close to the house, but at least she goes out and she plays. And she has figured out how to get in the basement through the cat door. And so once she does that, then she wants somebody to carry her up the stairs to upstairs because she doesn't do stairs. Otherwise, yeah, it's fine. She loves being up there. She gets lots of exercise and fresh air. The cats and her pretty much just ignore each other. I think she would be happy to be playful and friendly with the cats, but they're kind of like, yeah, whatever, go away. And they mostly ignore her. There's 2 of them are fairly okay. Like I've seen them laying near each other. One, if Muffin comes anywhere near her, she just hisses at her. And then the other one, the 4th one that's inside, Max, he's gotten better. He used to just vacate the premises anytime Muffin was up there, but now he will just be on very high alert and make sure that he's up someplace where the dog will not be able to get near him. He spends a lot of time on the cat tower while Muffin's up there. And the 5th cat is an outdoor only cat. He doesn't really come in the house except, well, he's got like a little area in the one garage that he can come in and out of. But he would not let Muffin near him at all, ever, even if she was outside where he was. So, but all in all, it's going well. I like it whenever she's up there with me because, like I said, she can just kind of chill in ways that she can't here. She spends a lot of time inside here. I can't let her just roam here because she would be up on the road and everything. So anyway, that is Muffin. So thanks for asking about Muffin. Let's see. Next question is from Wanda from New York. I'm not even going to try to pronounce your Rav name. She says, hi, Lisa. I've been listening to the podcast for a while. Thank you. And noticed you like to order from Webb's. Well, recently, yes. I was wondering, have you ever been there? I live close to the store and have been several times. It's heaven and find myself leaving with more than I went in for. No, I have never been to Webb's. I have been up in that area, but I've never had the opportunity to stop in. And you know what? It's probably better that way for the very reason that you just mentioned. I could see myself kind of going crazy, but maybe someday when I'm up that way, I'll get to go in and look around and just check it out. Yeah, it would be fun. I've heard it's a fabulous place, and I know they have their big sales and stuff a couple times a year. So maybe someday. And then she also wanted to share a little thing about thinking that she didn't have whips for Stash Dash and then remembering that she'd have all kinds of things going on. So yeah, Stash Dash starts tomorrow. Yay. Okay, thank you for your question, Wanda. The next one is actually Stash Dash related. And that one is by K8R, who is Linda from Michigan. Linda asks, how do you figure out your yardage for Stash Dash? Is there a formula for grams or ounces to equal yards? Yes. This is a multi-phase answer, actually. First of all, I will point out that Stash Dash is measured in meters, not yards. So once you do figure out yards, you have to convert to meters, which is fairly easy because 1 meter equals 1.09 yards. So if you know your yards, you would multiply that number times 0.91, and that would give you your meters. However, if you are using your project page on Ravelry, once you put your information in, I don't know if you know this about like when you're putting projects into Ravelry. Let me get to one of my project pages so that I can show you or tell you specifically. I figured this out last year. I hadn't actually paid too much attention to it before then. But when you have a project, okay, I'm going to use my antler hat that I did recently, which was Cascade 220 Heathers. So I finished my antler hat and I weighed it, and it came out to 0.46. It was 46 grams is basically what it was. I have a kitchen scale that measures both in ounces and grams, and I would highly suggest having one of those on hand to do this kind of figuring. They're not super expensive, but get one that measures in grams. So I weighed the hat. It was 46 grams. So you know that if you put that in there into Ravelry, as when it asks you how much you used, here, let me click edit so I can tell you exactly what it says. When it says how much you used, skeins, well, I know that the skein was 100 grams to begin with. So if I used 46 ounces for the hat, I know that was 0.46 of the full skein. But if say it had been a 50-gram skein, you don't even have to figure it out. All you need to do is put in a decimal that you think is close to it, and it automatically tells you how many grams you've used and converts it to yards. This is before you save that information. So I put in, 0.46 of a skein, and that tells me that's equal to 46 grams, which I already knew because I had weighed it. And that is equal to 101.2 yards, because there's 220 yards per 100 grams of Cascade 220. So Ravelry is doing that math for you. Now, once you save your project and you look at your project page, it not only tells you your yards and your grams, but it puts meters in parentheses. So that 101.2 yards is equal to 92.5 meters. So that's the number that I would use when I'm calculating my totals for Stash Dash, because that is the easiest and probably the most accurate way to go about it. Again, you can do your own figuring. If you did need to figure it without it going into there, like let's say you were using hand spun or something, and you know that you had a skein of hand spun that had, let's say it had 100 yards in it, okay? And it was no, that wouldn't make any sense. I'm going to use a weird number. For example, my bounce base, which I know that's not hand spun, but for the sake of argument here, I know there's 400 yards per 100 gram skein of bounce. So that means there are 4 yards for every gram. Make sense? 400 yards and 100 grams, so you do the division. 400 divided by 100 gives you 4 grams or 4 yards per gram. Once you know that, you can measure your finished object, and let's say your finished object was, 80 grams. Well, you have 80 grams of a knitted object at 4 yards per gram, so 4 times 80 is 320 yards. So then you would take the 320 and multiply that times 0.91, and that would give you your meters. It's a lot of math, but it's easy. But honestly, the easiest way to go about it is just to use your Ravelry project page, have a scale so that you can get your grams and be able to put that into your project page, and it will figure it out for you. Yeah, that's the easiest way. Because again, like when you're putting that number in, even if you don't know that, like in this case, my 0.46 I knew was 46 grams, but if I didn't know that and it was something else, just put that fraction in until you get to that gram number that you know you're aiming for. Then it does all the other conversions for you. I hope that's not too complicated. I have not looked on the Stash Dash thread lately in the Knit Girls group, but I think they also include information for how to do those calculations if you need that information. So you might want to check there. But otherwise, it's really not that difficult. You just having a scale is really key to getting accurate measurements for this kind of thing. That's been my experience anyway. Okay, so thank you for your question about that, Linda. I hope that was helpful and not too confusing. Let's see, last question is from Jojo Nikki 1. And Jojo Nikki 1 asks, how do you swatch for something done in the round on circular needles? If I swatch flat in stockinette, my gauge is different. Thanks. Thank you for your question. And yes, you're correct. Your gauge will most likely be very different if you swatch flat, but you're going to be knitting in the round. I do it multiple ways, depending on what I'm knitting. If I am knitting, let's say, a sweater, a lot of times what I'll do is I will start with a sleeve, if it's like a cuff up sleeve, and I will just start knitting that sleeve. And once I have several inches of that, I will measure for gauge and use that as my gauge swatch. That way, if it's not on where it needs to be, it's not too painful to have to rip out because it's not that much. And if it is on, then I've made that much more progress towards my finished sweater. However, if it's something bigger that you don't really want to do, now the other thing is like for hats and things, I don't really worry about swatching just because I feel like it's a small enough object. I'm going to know early enough on if it's something that the gauge isn't quite right, and I don't have a problem with ripping that back. However, if you are knitting something like a sweater, you know, let's say it's a raglan sweater that's being knit from the bottom up. You're not going to be able to start with a sleeve on that probably. Maybe you will. Depends on the pattern. But let's say for the body, the best way to do this that I have found is start knitting on circular needles. You could actually use 2 double points for this too. But use the size that you're going to be knitting and cast on, you know, whatever, 20, 40 stitches, whatever you want to use for your gauge. Your gauge swatch, and knit across as if you were knitting circularly, but instead of purling back as you would if you're flat, just take your yarn and slide the work back down to the other end and then leave a big long float from the end that you just ended to the beginning of the knitting, and then just knit again. So it's like you're knitting in the round without knitting completely in the round. You're just going to have a whole succession of big long loose floats in the back. But it's a really good way to simulate circular knitting without knitting a giant thing in the round for the sake of getting a gauge swatch. Now, when you're measuring your gauge on a swatch like that, you want to be careful to not measure those few stitches at the very ends, because with those loose strands in the back, that's going to throw off those stitches. I would definitely use like the middle 10 to 20 stitches. That's why I would say do a larger swatch if you're going to do that, just so you have a good chunk of solid knitting to measure with. But that's a really good way to swatch for doing it in the round. I've found that to be fairly accurate. The other thing, which is always important no matter how you're swatching, and I'll just throw this out there, is make sure you bind off your swatch before you measure. Now, do I always do that? No, I don't. But it's the most accurate way to measure a swatch. Bind off, as opposed to just leaving the knitting on the needle and measuring it there, because the tension is going to be quite different in those rows right below that needle, and so it might throw off your gauge as opposed to if it was actually bound off. So okay, so thank you for your question. That was fun. I had lots of questions. If you guys have questions, please post them in the Do You Have Any Questions thread, or Do You Have Questions thread, and I will answer them as quickly as I possibly can. All right, let us move on here. What do I have next? New things. I don't have a lot of new things, but I do have some new yarn. And I told you last time I had ordered from Webs some Elspeth of Old Silky Wool. Can I just say I'm really glad that their anniversary sales are coming to an end this month. I need them to be done because I need to not have the temptation. But anyway, my Webs order did come, I think maybe even the same day that I recorded. And this is what I got from Webb's. This is color number 166. I do not remember what it was called. It's looking very, very bright there. It's much, I think it was called denim maybe. Yeah, it's much more accurate back here. It's not super bright, but it's just a really like stone-washed, soft denim-y kind of look, and I love it. I think it's going to be really pretty in a sweater. So I have seven skeins of that. I love the smell of silky wool. I don't know why. Anyway, so I did get that. And then last week when I had my dental appointment, my dentist's office is really conveniently, or maybe inconveniently, located sort of right across the highway and over a little bit from one of the yarn shops in that town. And so every once in a while I treat myself, and since I had to get a filling, which I could rant about, I'm 50 years old, and this was the first filling I have ever had to get. I've never had a cavity. I've never had any dental work other than getting my wisdom teeth out as a teenager. And I had to get a filling because I had a cavity. First time in my life. I was not a happy camper. When I went to my regular cleaning and checkup, and the dentist was like, oh, you have a cavity there. We'll have to fill that. I'm like, wait, what? What? No, that's not possible. I have perfect teeth. And he's like looking at me like, yeah. And it was funny because the hygienist, you could tell she knew I was upset. She's like, I can tell you take really good care of your teeth. It's just, your pH of your saliva can change as you get older. And I'm like, whatever. But anyway, so I got the filling. It was fine. But I thought I deserved a treat. So I did go to the yarn shop afterwards. And I bought one skein of yarn that is actually a skein that I have of, it's some Noro Tayo. I don't have it here with me. It's up at the Mountain House because I had bought some of that there one other time. And so there was one more skein in like the discount bin, so I grabbed it. But I also bought something else. Does this look familiar? Why, yes, it's some Elizabeth of Old Silky Wool. It was not on sale there, but it was so pretty. Look at that color. It's like this berry kind of, it's not super pink, it's like a berry pink, like a light magenta-y kind of purpley pink. Color number 153 if you'd like to know the actual number, but so pretty. So yeah, I've got a sweater lot of that too. And if you're ever in the area in Ligonier, Pennsylvania, it's Bo Peep Fine Yarns, which is where I went and got that. So I have dreams of so many sweaters, and I do really love Elspeth of Old Silky Wool. You've heard me talk about that before. So anyway, yeah, the only other new thing I got was yesterday. My son and I went out to dinner because Bill had a thing to go to after work, and he wasn't going to be home for dinner. So Chris and I went out. And we went to Red Robin over at the mall because he likes that. And then afterwards, he was going to go in the bookstore. We hadn't driven together. I'd met him there after he got off work. So I said, well, okay, you're going to the bookstore. I said, I have to run in Ulta, which was right next door because I needed some hair stuff. And while I was in Ulta, I thought, I'm going to look at the makeup because I really need some new eyeshadow. My eyeshadow is I've used all of my happy colors that I use all the time, so I needed something different. And so I bought some Urban Decay. That sounds terrible to say that. It sounds like something you'd go to the doctor and get antibiotics for, but I know it's a very popular makeup. I have personally never had it. I think I bought Emma some one year for Christmas. But anyway, so I got some Urban Decay Nocturnal Shadow Box. It's got like all these crazy colors in it, and I've never used this. Like I said, I've never used this eyeshadow before, and so I was playing with it before the podcast. I've got a lot of makeup on today compared to usual. I'm sure you've noticed. I've probably got about 7 different colors of eyeshadow like layered on top of each other because I would put them on like, wow, that's thick and dark, and I'm like, damn. Anyway, and then okay, here's something weird. I'm going to tell you this story because I think this is really, really strange. Okay, so I went and I got this eyeshadow and everything. So when I got home, I was taking stuff out of bags, and I sat the eyeshadow on my dresser. And when Bill finally got here after his dinner thing that he was at, he saw it sitting on the dresser. He's like, oh, what's that? And I'm like, oh, well, I stopped at Ulta and I picked up some stuff and I got eyeshadow. He's like, oh, at this thing that I was at, this dinner, it was for somebody who was leaving. Like it was like a going away kind of thing. He's like, she was there, and he said, her son was there and his son's girlfriend was there. And she said, he was saying that the girlfriend, he's like, she had this eyeshadow, or no, he called it mascara. He's like, this mascara that was like really thick and came out here. I'm like, that's not mascara. I said, that's eyeliner. Okay. He's like, well, what's that all about? It's like this swoopy thing out the end of your eyes. And I said, well, yeah, that's a thing. And he's like, yeah, I keep seeing that on a lot of people. I said, yeah, you do it with liquid eyeliner. I said, I'm not super good at it, so I don't tend to do it, although I tried today, and that's a little bit more of the story. Although, looking at it on here, it looks way more accentuated than it looked in my bedroom mirror. That's kind of frightening. Anyway, so we were talking about that, and I said, yeah, it's just a way of doing your makeup. Okay, so then this morning, I was watching some YouTube videos while I was, doing a little bit of knitting. I was working on that hat actually this morning. And you know how YouTube will say, "Oh, recommended video for you." There was a video, it was a Sephora video. Did you know Sephora did videos on how to do different makeup things? Well, I know that now, and now I'm subscribed to it, so I'm going to be watching all the makeup videos. Anyway, the one that was on there, it kept popping up, was how to do the perfect winged eye or eyeliner or something. And I saw it several times, and then I finally clicked on it, and it was about doing this exact thing that Bill was talking about. He saw this girl with this on, and then I'm like, how does the internet know? It's not like I Googled that. It's almost like it hears you. It hears all and sees all. I know it's probably coincidental, but it's still kind of weird. At least I hope it's coincidental. Anyway, so yeah, I watched this video about how to do this winged eyeliner thing, and so I was playing with it before I recorded, and yeah, I don't know. I may be too old. It was really funny because there was another video for eye makeup for mature eyes. I'm thinking that's code for saying you're too old for doing that stuff there. Don't do that. Do this because anyway, I had fun. So I just figured if I had to start completely over, I'd never get to record. So that's why you're getting me like this. And then I thought, well, what the heck? I'll just throw on some bright lipstick too. So I'm all dolled up. I did not go to the garage to get the car inspected looking like this, just so you know. I don't tend to do that, but whatever. Anyway, so that's my other new thing, makeup. All right, that takes us into 10%. Let's see. I finished listening to I Shouldn't Even Be Doing This by Bob Newhart. It was cute. It was not as funny as I expected it to be. I find that, like, comedians who do memoir kind of things, you think they're going to be funnier, but they're not necessarily. But it was good. And if you know Bob Newhart from like years ago and you're aware of his work, it would probably be worth listening to if you wanted to. Don't spend a whole credit on Audible on it though. It's definitely not worth that. I got it when it was on sale. I just bought it. So anyway, finished listening to that. The book I'm listening to now, I love. And it's another one from the Modern Scholar series. So it's lectures. And it's by the same guy, Michael D.C. Drought, Professor Michael D.C. Drought, who did the audiobook on the Norse, the Norseman that I listened to a while back. Yeah, the Vikings, sorry. That's what it was. This one is called Rings, Swords, and Monsters, Exploring Fantasy Literature. Oh my gosh, this is fabulous. If you love that kind of stuff, and I'll tell you right now, out of all the chapters, I'm not completely done with it, but the majority of the chapters really focus on Tolkien and The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and Silmarillion, mainly because Tolkien was like the best, biggest fantasy writer of the 20th century. So he kind of set the stage for it. He does talk about other writers prior to Tolkien, and I don't know what he talks about afterwards, but a lot of it's very centralized around Tolkien's work. And I've read a lot about Tolkien as well as his works. I've not read the Silmarillion. I own it, but I have not read it. It's a totally different animal from his other works. And he actually did not finish it. His son Christopher finished putting it together after his death. Anyway, I love it. I love this stuff, and I'm definitely going to be listening to this book again just to get all of everything out of it that I possibly can. Because like the last one that I listened to, there's just so much in it. You really have to listen to it more than once to really glean everything in depth. So I can't wait to listen to it again. I'm enjoying it so, so much. But I'm a geek that way. I kind of like that stuff. All right, the only other 10% thing is my trip. So we left last Friday morning and took the bike down to Charlotte. It was a lovely day to ride. Um, we didn't really we had a little bit of rain, like sprinkles here and there, but nothing major. I think after we had come through, there was actually a lot more rain because some of my like ex's family who was coming down also, they said they hit some major rain. Anyway, so we got down there, and Friday night we just sort of hung out with my mom and her friend who came along and did dinner and everything. And then Saturday morning was the graduation, and it was so nice. Emma spent the night with us at the hotel that night because we had a hotel like right next to the arena where the graduation was taking place. It was at the Spectrum Center. So she stayed there so she could just walk over and not have to drive anywhere. And she has her car now. Her dad brought her car down. So she's got wheels in Charlotte now that she's living there. Anyway, it was wonderful. I was so proud of her and seeing her in her gown and all of her regalia that she had, her honors cord and her sashes for student government and for her sorority and for, I forget what else. She had a whole bunch of stuff hanging around her neck. And then, she decorated her graduation cap. I guess that's a thing. Now, I did not know that, but it is. There was tons of them were decorated. The nice thing about that is nobody throws them at the end anymore because they're decorated. So anyway, but the ceremony was lovely, and being in the Spectrum Center, you had the big screens up there, so it was super easy to see everything that was going on. And then we went out and we took lots and lots of pictures in the sunshine with all the family. I saw my in-laws, like my ex-in-laws, for the first time in a few years. That was interesting. Everybody was nice and cordial and everything, but I was a little apprehensive. I didn't know how that was going to go, but it was fine. So we were all there, and then we ended up going out to lunch. We took Emma out to lunch, Emma and her roommate, Alyssa, Bill and I, and my mom and her friend, and then my oldest son, Zach. He had driven over from Eastern North Carolina to be there for the graduation. So we all went out to lunch, and that was nice, getting to spend time with everybody. And then he had to turn around and drive back right after lunch, which was horrible because he had just gotten in super late the night before. I felt bad for him, but he had to go. Anyway, the rest of us, then we got to go to Blackout, which is where my daughter works. And I think I've talked about this before. It's one of those escape the room places. She had made arrangements for the 5 of us to be able to do one of the rooms where she works, and it was so much fun. We did, I don't remember what it was called, but it was like a serial killer room was the storyline behind it. And so she was not running the room. Like one of the other girls that she works with was our person who introduced us into there and everything. And then the character that we had in the room who was a ghost, that was somebody else also. But I'd heard about this, like, because Emma does all those things too. So I had a little bit of knowledge about what was going to happen, but actually being in there and doing it was completely different and everything. So that was fun. And I think she got a real kick out of being able to listen to us and watch us while we were doing it, because there's, like cameras, they can keep track of what's going on in there so nobody gets hurt or anything. But it was fun, and we did escape. I think we had like a little over a minute left on our clock to be able to escape. So that worked out well. It was a lot of fun. So again, I think I may have posted a picture on Instagram for that. I don't know if I'm going to get to put pictures in here, but if you're following me on Instagram, my regular Fiber Nymph account, you'll see those pictures there, as well as from graduation. It was a great deal of fun. And yeah, and then Sunday we ended up We also went to Emma's apartment, so we got to see her new apartment that day, which is in total disarray, but they just moved in. So the next day, Sunday, she and Alyssa were going to Florida for a week-long conference thing. And so Bill and I just hung out in Charlotte, and we did the Beckler Modern Art Museum, which I had not been to before. And it was okay. But then we also went next door to the Mint Museum, which I had been to before, which is another art gallery. And I really, really like the Mint Museum. I liked it better than the displays at the Beckler. But, I mean, it was all cool. So it was a fun thing to do. And then as we were leaving the museums at 5, because that's the other thing on Sundays, like everything's open from noon to 5. That's it. That's your window of opportunity for doing anything like that in Charlotte. We decided we'd grab dinner on the way back. And so we we stopped, I don't remember what the Black Fin or Fin Black or something, I don't know, this restaurant, pub kind of place. And we ate there. And it started pouring rain while we were in there. So we had a couple beers each and got dessert. And we were really kind of milking this because, I mean, I did have an umbrella with me, but we were kind of cold at that point. So that was probably the worst weather that we had the whole time we were gone. And then Monday morning we got up and we got on the bike and we started up towards Fancy Gap. We took kind of a roundabout back way. We didn't go up 77. So we took a different route up to Fancy Gap and got on the Blue Ridge Parkway at Fancy Gap, Virginia. And we did that. That was Monday. And we stayed at Peaks of Otter, which is like a motel kind of inn place that they have on the Blue Ridge Parkway, which was nice. It was very dated, like you could tell that it was probably built back in the 50s or 60s, but it was quaint in that way, and the food was good. So we did that. That's where we stayed Monday, and then Tuesday we got up, and it was quite chilly Tuesday, and we did go through drizzle a lot. And then we drove the rest of the way to the end of the Blue Ridge Parkway, which puts you on the Skyline Drive through Shenandoah National Park, which was also nice. But again, it had been rainy, so any of the overlooks were pretty much clouds for the most part until later in the day. I will say that I liked the Blue Ridge Parkway part better than Shenandoah part, just because you saw more. I thought you saw more because, you know, on the Blue Ridge Parkway, I mean, that runs kind of parallel to other roads, and there's farms and farm animals and buildings and houses, and, you know, it's not overly populated by any stretch, but there's a lot of fun stuff to see. Whereas whenever you're in Shenandoah National Park, you're just seeing the park, and it's the road and the overlooks and trees, and that's it. Not that that's bad, and I'm sure I would have probably enjoyed it better if it had been a nice, warm, sunny day, which it was not. But it was fun. And then, you know, once we got off of there up at Front Royal, we just got on the highway and zoomed the rest of the way home. We didn't get home till like 9 o'clock. It was a very long time to be sitting on a bike both of those days. My back was feeling it by the end, and I was ready to be off those bikes, or that bike, not those bikes. I will say I would love to do that again on my own bike, and we've talked about that, like getting on and going like the whole way, like down past Asheville and into Cherokee and everything. So that might be something we'll do someday once I have a little bit more experience, because those roads all along there, they're just all twisty and turny and up and down hills, and I love driving on roads like that on the bike. And the nice part about it is the speed limit is only like 35 or 45 miles an hour, depending on which part you're on. So that's slow enough that I would not feel pressured that I had to drive faster the way I do when I'm on regular roads around here. So I think that would be a lot of fun, but not right now. We need to take a break. So anyway, that was our trip, and it was wonderful. I'm glad to be home. However, we're turning around and leaving on Saturday to drive back down to Charlotte, to take Emma a bunch of her furniture. But that's going to just be a quick down and back trip. We're driving down Saturday, taking the furniture, and coming right back Sunday. And so we'll have Monday to sort of maybe relax a little bit. So anyway, other than that, I do have some shop news. Let me just go through it real quick. First of all, there is going to be a small shop update on Monday, which is Memorial Day, the 29th of May. I have some extra anniversary colorway yarn from when I was dyeing that up. So I've got 2 of the self-striping. So I showed you my sock. I've got 1 on Bounce and 1 on Traveler. Those will be in the shop. And then I have 4 of the variegated and speckled version of the colorway, and they're all on Bounce. So those will be in the shop on Monday. I do have some just odds and ends from like special orders and test dyes that I've done lately that I'll probably put in the shop. But the main thing that will be in the shop on Monday is there's going to be the next of the limited quantity small batch offerings that I've been doing this year. And this one's a little bit different because it's going to be, I'm calling it Inspired by You. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up sock blanks, like undyed sock blanks and undyed Bounce or Bedazzled. So it'll be either way. You will be able to choose which you would like, either the sparkle sock blank or the non-sparkle sock blank, or Bounce or Bedazzled fingering weight yarn. And basically what you will do is, if you would like to take part in this, is buy one of those. That is your spot. And what you need to do then is you need to send me a picture of something that you would like me to interpret and turn into yarn for you. A colorway just for you, inspired by you. For the sock blank, I can do it as a a resist dye. I can try doing some hand painting if you want. I'm not going to make promises as to what any of it's going to turn out to be, because these are all very random sort of methods that I'm going to be using on this. It's mainly about the color interpretation based on what you share with me that you would like reflected in yarn for you. It can be any kind of picture too. Like it can be a personal picture, like something from your family, or a vacation picture, or whatever, or it can be something off of the internet, just something that I can look at and I can interpret that for you and make it into your own colorway. As with regard to the sock blank, that was the sock blank I just talked about. With regard to the Bounce or the Bedazzled skeins, that needs to be either I can do a speckled and like a variegated and speckled colorway for you, or just variegated, or if you want something that's all speckles with a lot of white background, I can do that. If you want something tonal and speckled, I can do that. Basically, this is for anything that is not like a self-striping or a gradient. I might do those sometime in the future this way, but for this one, this is just going to be either sock blanks or, the tonal, speckled, variegated, whatever. I will ask for your input whenever you send me that picture. It'll all be written up in the listing so that you know what to expect and how we'll go about this. But obviously it will be a pre-order kind of thing, so you'll get it in 4 to 6 weeks. But I just thought it would be really fun. I've done things like this before, but I haven't done it for a really long time, and I've always enjoyed it, and people have always enjoyed having the yarn that comes from what they've asked for the inspiration to be. So I just thought that would be a really fun thing to do. So again, look for that. And that's it. That's all that's going to be in the update, is basically that limited quantity small batch Inspired by You offering and the leftovers from the anniversary colorways for right now. Otherwise, the new Fiber Nymph Dye Work Instagram account, have you followed that yet? I did the first drawing for the $25 gift certificate, first of 3, last Saturday. So I have 1 winner already. I'll be drawing for 2 more, one this Saturday, which is the 27th, and then the last one will be on June 3rd. So please follow that account. It's Fiber Nymph Dye Works is the account name for my business Instagram account. So please do that, and you could still win one of those last 2 $25 gift certificates. Let's see, the Barbershop Barber Pole Fiber Club. The first shipment will go out by the 31st. I had not put specific ship by dates in either of these most recent clubs, I guess because I was just thinking I knew that I would ship within the last week of the month. And that's pretty standard for my clubs. I ship within the last week of the month. And by the last week. I mean, within the last 7 days of the month. It may not be a physical, actual Sunday to Saturday kind of week, but within that last 7 days. With all the traveling going on right now, that's why I'm saying it'll go out by the 31st for sure, but it might be the 31st that it goes out. Because I'm cutting it a little close this time, just because it's been sort of a crazy month. But they are going to be coming, and I'm very excited about my inspiration for this one too. I hope you like it. I want to thank everybody who shopped my Grad Girl sale last week. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Everything has been shipped out from that now, except if you ordered something that was a pre-order, like if you ordered one of the splash pad party colorways or something. That will be coming, but everything else is in the mail to you, so thank you. Also, please remember that the Summertime KAL begins in the Fiber Nymph Dye Works group next Thursday, so a week from today. That one starts, and that's going on through the whole summer, June, July, and August, and that is for you to use up your wonderful stash of Fiber Nymph Dye Works yarn. June, all that information is in the Fiber Nymph Dye Works group, by the way. June is going to be all about self-striping yarns. So that's what we're knitting with for June, is the self-striping, Fiber Nymph Dye Works self-striping. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to post that in the Knitalong thread in the Fiber Nymph Dye Works group, or PM me. I'll be happy to answer that too. Let's see. I think I told you everything else, right? Yes. Update, everything. That's it. All right. If I didn't cover something or you have a question about anything I talked about, please post it in the episode thread. I'll be happy to follow up and try to clarify anything. Let's see. Yeah. I will be probably recording my next episode next Thursday, which will be June 1st. So I will have the prizes to award for the May Year in the Life of a Knitter podcast next week. And the June challenge will be starting by then. And the first month of the Summertime KAL here in the Fiber Nymph Dye Works group will be starting. So we're moving right along. All right, that's everything. Have a wonderful rest of your week. If you're here in the U.S. and you'll be celebrating Memorial Day this weekend, I hope you have rain-free picnics and family time. Whatever you're doing, have a great time. Be safe, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.